You?
Hello, everyone. Hi, yo to Stephen, yo to the room, yo to the digital space. Um, hi, oh, hiya, Rosie. Yay! I love when people use the chat. It makes me really happy. I got to meet Deirdre virtually a couple of weeks ago, and Deirdre is my new favorite person in the whole world. That's the way I'm going to open this introduction. Deirdre is not only an artist, but even like she's like a super artist and that arts advocate. Whoa, all the not only can you make things, you can help other people make things, which is just two superpowers all in
Yeah.
one person, and that's Deirdre. Deirdre works at the University of Atypical, but also does a lot of projects herself. And I guess I was really, really excited to get going with Deirdre today in terms of like our conversations prior to this have been very focused on accessibility for everyone in artistic spaces, how what access needs sometimes aren't a lot of artistic spaces and even collectives don't really recognize, and then how how we can make change and how we can ensure and also know your rights, which is very exciting. So I guess, yeah, Deirdre, do you want to talk a bit about your work with the University of Atypical?
Well, firstly, good morning. Thanks for anybody joining at 11 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Very good to be up at that hour. I'm going to start with a ID. So I'm uh, a larger white middle-aged woman. I have brown hair. I have it in bunches. I have a zebra skin blue and black top on, and I have some pineapple earrings. And I have a picture in the background. So that's what the visual is for me. Yeah, so I'm Deirdre McKenna, and I am a visual artist and organizer and meddler sometimes. And yeah, and so I work with an organization. So I'm originally from Dublin. I moved to Belfast in 1996 to finish my degree in fine arts, and then stuck about and yeah, ended up getting involved in a lot of different things. So like ended up, on the board of directors with Catalyst Arts, which is an artist run organization here in the city, and worked for the Golden Thread for 10 years and in education outreach. And now I work with the University of Atypical. University of Atypical is a wonderful organization. If you don't know about it, then check it out. We're an empowerment-based organization. All the artists we work with are either deaf, disabled, or neurodiverse, and we have a public program. Um, we run a gallery and we run a festival. We offer funding. We offer opportunities. So, like at the moment, we've got 5 artists commissioned working on a project called Accessing Architecture, which is like looking at the built environment in Belfast and responding to it in terms of access. So that can be, well, the artist will decide what that kind of is for them. And yeah, and so yeah, the University of Atypical have a membership. It's free to join if you're deaf, disabled, or neurodiverse. And yeah, and then you'll find out about what's going on and what's coming up. We've got a festival in December called Bounce, and yeah, and so again, this year is going to be a bit different in that we've got like a pandemic and we have to negotiate around that, but we're very keen to make sure that that happens this year, um as we are involved in another campaign called We Shall Not Be Removed. But I don't know, like, I mean, again, you tell me if there's particular sort of questions or anything like that, or I'll just keep chatting, one or the other.
Yeah, for
um
sure. Yeah, the
yeah,
chat is great. And also feel free if anyone wants to jump in, do feel free.
yeah. And I suppose like there was a couple of we have had a couple of little chats, and some things around how we work with our artists. We have we work with a social model. So we are all about, we're not interested in fixing anybody. We want to work with the artists where they are, where they're at, and ensure that their work is out there and supported in the manner that works for them. And I suppose we've been talking a little bit about a thing called Crip Time.
Yeah.
And so there's an essay by Ellen Samuels called Six Ways of Looking at Crip Time. And if it's okay, I'd like to just read just a tiny little bit of it. I mean, it's a long essay, and there's a lot of different, connected theories and stuff like that. Yeah, but I think it's kind of an interesting thing, right? And it's maybe interesting to sort of look at and think about, because, well, I find it interesting to look at and think about. You might too. Okay, so I'm just gonna read a little bit. So, okay, when disabled folks talk about crip time, sometimes we just mean that we're late all the time. Maybe because we need more sleep than non-disabled people. Maybe because the accessible gate in the train station was locked. But other times when we talk about crip time, we mean something more beautiful and forgiving. We mean, as my friend Margaret Price explains, we live our lives with a flexible approach to normative timeframes, like work schedules, deadlines, or even just waking and sleeping. My friend Alison Kiefer said that rather than bend disabled bodies and minds to meet the clock, crip time bends the clock to meet disabled bodies and minds. I've embraced this beautiful notion for many years, living within the embrace of crip time that lets me define my own normal. There's just one other little bit. And again, I'm reading it out of sequence, but crip time is time travel. Disability and illness have the power to extract us from linear progressive time with its normative life stages and cast us into a wormhole of backward and forward acceleration, jerks, stops and starts, tedious intervals, and abrupt endings. Some of us contend with the impediments of old age while still young. Some of us are treated like children no matter how old we get. The medical language of illness tries to reimpose the linear, speaks in terms of chronic and progressive and terminal, of lapses and stages. But we who occupy bodies of crip time know that we are never linear. We rage silently, nor or not so silently, at the calm straightforwardness of those who live in the sheltered space of normative time. And so it's kind of like that idea of, I mean, anyway, if you read the essay, you'll kind of see about, it's a kind of a concept of bending time, and I guess in our organization, for example, I don't start work until 11 a.m. because I have arthritis, and in the mornings I need more time. Everybody else starts at 9, but I'm happy to work till 7. And it's understood that that's how I need to work. And, and so again, depending on maybe, like the artists that we're working with, we ask them what works for them, and we sometimes have a plan, and sometimes we have to revisit the plan and try a new plan because it maybe doesn't work for that artist, and their way of being, in the world. And that's for us to figure out as the organization in order to enable that artist to do what they need to do, and that doesn't necessarily just apply to disability. It applies to if you're a person with, a baby or, a young, and, so to basically support families as well, so that if an artist needs to be somewhere or like on a residency or something like that, you accommodate the, you basically look at what the access requirements are. And so I guess maybe sometimes artists aren't used to having organizations ask them even what their access requirements are in terms of making their project, or, you know, like, you know, what they need really, you know. And so we like to ask the artists what they need, you know, and what we can do to realize that, you know, because that's always best. That's always the best way, because the artist is supported, and we get great artists.
You do
You know,
though, yeah.
yeah. And yeah, I mean, I suppose it's also like, you know, it's part of a kind of bigger, I suppose, discussion right now around sort of inclusion and disability, you know. So like, we've been involved in a campaign that's a UK wide campaign, um, you know, and all the devolved nations, you know, and it's called We Shall Not Be Removed. So anybody can join up to that. If you're a visual artist or a curator or whatever you do creatively, you can join up to that campaign. And it's really great actually, because there's all these really interesting different bits of texts and other campaigns that are happening in the UK, and little pots of funding and stuff like that. So artists can, you know, kind of find out more about what they can access, you know, throughout the UK and so on. And these are specifically things for artists who are deaf, disabled, or neurodiverse. And, you know, so they have a thing they've introduced. So the Northern Ireland Arts Council, or the Arts Council of Northern Ireland, have recently adopted, as a result of that campaign. So the campaign kind of grew out of the sort of, I suppose, the disproportionate effect that COVID has had in the creative sector, especially around people with disabilities. And so they've been pushing for the funding bodies to include 7 principles of the 7 inclusive principles. And again, that again is all about ensuring that deaf and disabled and neurodiverse people have a place at the table and are represented. And that, you know, it's again that sort of nothing about us without us sort of attitude, you know, that, you know, like, you know, if we have people who are disabled in workforces and who have different ways of being, then, you know, the world becomes much more, you know, inclusive, you know. Yeah, and I suppose as well, like things around sort of invisible disabilities as well, you know, that, you know, like we're kind of very mindful that, you know, somebody coming into us, you know, that, you know, like we want to make sure that, you know, we're understanding the person and, you know, understanding what their needs are and stuff like that. And, you know, for example, we have an annual award called the IDA Award. And the IDA Award is, so this year we're doing it slightly differently. So artists can apply for 1, 2, or 3 grand to realize a project. Or, for example, you might be a writer who wants to go on a residency in the Highlands, and it costs £500 to do the course or whatever you want to do. You need to get there. Maybe you need to bring a PA with you or whatever. Then, you know, you can apply for money to do that and essentially build on your skills and develop your craft or your talent, you know, and your artistic way, you know. And yeah, and yeah, so, but we do lots of interesting stuff. We work with lots of amazing artists, you know. And yeah, I suppose it's also things about kind of ensuring that people's voices are heard, you know. That's really important to us, like, you know. And, you know, some artists work responds to their disability, you know, and some artists work responds to the dust floating in the air or whatever it is, you know. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've any specific questions or anything that you specifically would like to address. I mean, like, I know what I know as a visual artist, and you know, I guess I can bring to the table what I know, but I mean, it's also important that, for example, if you're an artist, maybe you're recent graduate or something like this, and you've never worked with a public gallery before, I mean, if you're working with a gallery that receives public funds, then, your access requirements should be met, and it's important to have that conversation. And again, it's sometimes about like the person's individual way, like some people maybe, you know, are not familiar with being supported. And so therefore, like, I mean, again, sometimes people say to us, like, how do you know that people, who apply for IDA, are disabled? Because we trust people, right? We trust people because more often than not, we find that people with disabilities, uh, mask that they have disabilities to operate in the world that has never included them, so that they don't get marginalized or they don't get excluded or othered, and we want to make sure that the artist never feels they have to do that with us, because we want to make sure that their projects fly. And again, I'm really excited to have been invited here because we're always wanting to find new artists, doing whatever it is they're doing. I mean, like like in our funding, we funded computer programmers who are doing like games, VJs, all sorts of like multidiscipline, approach, theater, written word, whatever, visual art, whatever your art form is, we're interested to find out about it. And, we also, again, can point people and maybe in the right direction sometimes about how to do something, and ensure that they're, and it's also about just having that confidence to say, I'm an artist with a disability and I will need this, and this, like I'm not going to be installing from 9 a.m. because I'm not a 9 a.m.er, I need to get there at noon. That's when works for me. Is this, can you work around, can you make your work for me? And that's really important, and usually it's pretty straightforward, in terms of just, changing something around, and, yeah, and also just, ensuring that the artists can feel that they can ask for that, because if a gallery is publicly funded, then you get to say, I'm a disabled artist and I have specific requirements around how I work, and sometimes again, like, it depends on the nature of somebody's disability as well. Like, if you have a plan and, perhaps that person is having a bad day or, whatever, then, so the plan just gets thrown in the bin and we make a new plan, you know what I mean? So like we were supposed to do a Zoom, lecture or something, but that person's anxiety is through the roof that day. Well, then we just go to the people and we go, this is, we can't do this today. It's not happening today. We're going to reschedule. And then that's okay. And of course, like that sometimes means us going back to our funders and going, you know what, where we've had to reschedule. That's okay. We keep, we try and make it happen, and hopefully it can,
Yeah, I think that's such a good point on like people act like missing deadlines is the end of the world. Like especially in that, like we were talking that mainstream time. Sorry, my hair is getting bigger. But in that mainstream time of like of people trying to exist in what is like a for money system and for money time.
Yeah.
And I think it was so important to me and probably a lot of people hopefully here. Yeah, like Rosie's saying as well, like to know that these organizations exist, that like people like you exist, that are social model focused, that are
Yeah.
focused on the artist. One size doesn't fit all.
Yeah.
Someday, some days you'll need this, some days you'll need something else. And it's like it was like within like even like one conversation as well. And I used to think because I'm 24, I spent a long time learning what my access needs are. I even thought, oh, I had like a good grasp, and then I was talking to you, and then I was like, I actually no, I've like we were talking about as a like disabled freelancer, how you're actually entitled to get help with your tax returns and stuff like this, and
Yeah. I mean,
all.
like, yeah, like, I mean, if you go to HMRC, I mean, they, like, yeah, you can get, like, for example, if you have dyslexia or something like this, or any sort of learning impairment, you can go and you can say, I need help with my tax returns. And they have an access officer that will work with you on the tax return, which maybe makes it easier to be freelance. But I'm just thinking, just in relation to that sort of job thing and the time thing and, you know, being places, can I just read another little extract?
Mhm.
Um, I feel like I'm doing like sort of like, you know, the Sunday sermon or something, right? Hear ye, or whatever they say. Anyway,
Be inclusive.
so again, when I am talking about this crypt time essay, right? Of course, there's lots of different, you know, related, you know, theories and stuff like this, right? But if I just go to the top here, I'll just kind of give you an overview of what is meant. Uh, uh, So crypt time is a relational phenomenon that arises as non-normative bodies react interact with social worlds and anticipate a particular vision of normalcy, right? But the thing is this, right? If I go just down here, right? So they're talking about, and again, so this essay is by Emma Samuels, I think it is, and but you know, so they've broken it down into sort of 6 different sort of aspects, and so one aspect is crypt time is sick time. If I work from 9 to 5, 40-hour a week job, what is defined as a full-time job in the United States, then if you're lucky, you accumulate a certain number of sick days. There's always a strange um, arithmetic. There's always a strange arithmetic to this process. Maybe for every 8 hours you work, you accrue 1 sick hour, or maybe for every 20 work hours, or every 40. It's never 1-to-1 ratio. You have to work hard to earn the time to be sick. The assumption, of course, is that we will not be sick too often. When I realized I could no longer physically sustain a 9 to 5 job, I feared for my future. I hadn't even worked long enough to be eligible for social security disability. The solution I came up with was to return to academic life, to go to graduate school and get a PhD, and maybe, if I'm lucky enough, to become a professor. It was what it was. It was and still is the only way I could see to support myself in crypt time. But basically, what they did was, right, is that they they went back and then they came out and they went, right, this theory matters, right? This matters because it's about how we work in time, you know, and how the world has been structured in such a way that, you know, it's about productivity, right? So the sort of the clock on, you know, I've got a clock on at 9 o'clock, I've got a clock out at 5 o'clock, I've got X amount of annual leave a year and da 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 da. But that's all about my ability to be productive for the bigger system. Yeah. However, the bigger system hasn't asked me about who I am or what I do, or you know what I need. You know, and if we can say to the systems, and as artists, like I'm guessing like some of those systems might be your education, or they might be your studio group or whatever. I'm a studio holder in Flax Art Studios, which is now in the old UTV building. It's the first time I've been in a studio that's actually truly accessible. Yeah, you know, for a wheelchair user. I mean, like, depending on where my arthritis is, sometimes I take the lift, sometimes I take the stairs. It just depends on the day that I'm in, you know. And it's just great to be able to actually go, I don't have to try and struggle up the stairs with all of my bags. I can take the lift. And, you know, that's a coup, like, you know. it's not drafty, it's not cold. And so sometimes you need to say, and that's again about us coming together and going, you know, we want more from our studio provision. We want more from our educational provision. We want more from our galleries. We want more from our curators. You know, if a curator is approaching an artist and saying, hey, do you want to do this project? They need to, there's like that, you know, like the essence of the curator is to care, and be a caretaker with the artist. And obviously there's the, you know, the conceptual stuff as well, but to care about your artists. I mean, I'm just thinking about like, yeah, I mean, it's things like, you know, can you ensure that your budgets ensure that if an artist needs to bring a PA or a friend or whoever or an ally or an advocate, that they can, you know, that means that they can be there, you know, and have what they need, you know. So that's sometimes about how people plan projects or how galleries plan what they do, you know, to ensure that people are feeling supported, you know. And you know, and that's a, you know, like artists support what we do, because without the artist the gallery is empty. It's just a building, you know, it's just a space, you know. And again, it's also about, you know, accessible spaces, you know, in terms of, are our galleries accessible? Are, you know, can our musicians get on stage? You know, can they get to the backstage, to the dressing room, you know, so on and so forth. And again, there's lots of different organizations as well that are working, you know, and chipping away and moving forward to ensure that there is more inclusive thinking, you know, inside of how people plan things, you know. And yeah, it's just really, really important, you know.
Yeah, I'm really, somebody was submitting a question and they were talking about, especially with the University of Atypical self-identification system. And like, we're so used to all these systems where you have to jump through 10,000 hoops to prove that you're, you know, we were talking about the PIP applications recently, and, you know, walk up and down this room and tell me, how disabled are you? You know, this on a scale of 1 to 10, you know. And a lot of people don't even know if they should like identify as disabled. There's all these, I know we were talking about that as well, like in terms of artists. And I guess the big question of that is, like, what about the people who are worried that they're not disabled enough to work?
So I mean, so like, okay, so we've had people, so we do, when we do the IDA award per se, yeah, we have people ringing up, you know, because we do advice sessions, right, in advance of the application. So we can do one-to-one advice sessions. Sometimes we have group sessions so that people can come down and maybe they've never applied for anything before. You don't have to have any, like, there's no like prerequisite to have a formal education or anything like that, because we recognize that, you know, more often, you know, like people with disabilities are excluded from education or have been, or but I mean, the thing is that we would do advice sessions, and sometimes we get phone calls, and you know, we might have like Bob the musician on the phone, and Bob the musician on the phone is like, I am deaf in one ear. Am I disabled? You know, can I apply for this? And like, the thing is that we don't you know, there is no hierarchy of disability, right? The thing is that the person will know if they're disabled. They will know if they have something that affects them on a daily basis for like over a year and affects how they operate and how they function in the world, or, you know, or if it's a, you know, like, I mean, the thing is that quite often, like, the barriers that are placed in front of artists who are disabled are unbelievable. And, you know, it's like, we don't ask people to jump through hoops, you know what I mean? That's not, we trust our artists. We trust the people that come to us. I mean, if an artist applies and they are successful, we do announce it. We announce that X, Y, and Z got this award. You know, we're like, you know, we're disabled and proud. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, and the thing is that, you know, of course, like we don't, like, let's say, for example, we've had artists who apply who maybe, like maybe haven't disclosed what's happening with them in terms of their mental health to people around them or their network of artists. We don't talk about the person's impairment. We don't talk about the person's disability. We talk about the artists. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about, this is uh Peter, and he makes this, or like, and the thing is that, and that's what we're supporting, right? Do you know what I mean? And we're supporting them to make the work, but in a manner that works for the artist and is supportive to their disability. So, like, I mean, there's no hierarchy, or I don't even know if I'm kind of maybe waffling on here a bit, but
no, it makes
yeah.
No, but and I know you were talking the other day. It's not like you're going on Instagram and you're like, we're awarding money to so and Sosa's actually really depressed,
Yeah.
and you're not going to announce to the world what, like, a diagnosis. Like,
Sure.
it's totally just about, this is Sosa, we're giving Sosa money to make this.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what's wrong with Sosa.
Yeah.
It's making this.
Well, we see, we wouldn't even see it as wrong.
Oh yeah, true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the thing is that is again the sort of the medical model, that you are wrong and we want to fix you. We're going to fix you. We're going to fix you. You got one leg, we're going to fix you. You got, whatever. We're going to fix you. We don't want to fix anybody, We want to meet people where they are, and embrace the wonderfulness of that. You know what I mean? Like, without sounding like a hippie, but you know what I mean? Like, we want to make sure that there isn't any sort of kind of, we're not into the sort of like bringing people to Lourdes or any of that. You know what I mean? Like,
That's why I brought you here today. I thought you could hear me. No?
we're writing a list as we speak. Who wants to go? But and it's like and I mean, again, like, it's also about knowing, like, knowing your kind of network around the city as well. I mean, Belfast is a great city for artists, right? There's a lot of artist-led stuff in this city. There's a lot of DIY culture, I mean, like, in the late 90s in Belfast. I mean, Belfast, artists were doing it DIY style, they were making it happen, and they still are making it happen. I mean, Catalyst is like running for however long now. I mean, like 25 plus years, and that's all been led by artists, ran by volunteers and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? Like, so there's a lot of cross-pollination of ideas and ways in the city, and I think that one thing that we need to make sure of is that if somebody is having a talk, that, let's say, for example, that they always have money to pay for an interpreter if somebody wants to attend who's a BSL user, or, I suppose even things like to know that you can get it in another format, so can I have this in large print? Can this be an audio track? Can I apply via video, or, other ways of doing it, and it just, it's like, like, there's no point in like making like things difficult. If somebody, like, if somebody has dyslexia and there's like a 25-page application, well, then maybe you can do it in another manner. You can do it maybe as an audio application, or, so, and again, we try our best to make sure that we can keep things kind of flexible. And, if somebody says, I can't do it that way, but I could do it this way, we go, okay, right, so let's see how we can do this now, and it keeps us on our toes, and it means that people can come forward and say, this is what I need, that's really important.
Yeah, the identifying, I think it's vastly unfair that in the current system we have to self identify what we need. But I think, at least if we do know we can fight for it, we can fight for what we need in a workspace.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, again, like I was saying earlier, just to you about these, the sort of 7 inclusive principles, right? And so, again, that comes out of a campaign from the We Shall Not Be Removed. And the thing is that all these recovery plans around culture and all that stuff quite often have sort of forgotten about disability, right? It's like, because again, this pandemic is affecting people in many manners, in many ways, and disproportionately affecting people with disabilities. Do you know what I mean? Who again need to make sure that in any recovery packages that the kind of cultural sector are bringing forward, that people with disabilities are included, right? And I mean, they're very simple. They're things around, that all organizations' activities must comply with, the requirements of the Equality Act. I mean, like, we're still at that point now that we have to remind people that, it must comply with the Equality Act. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it seems strange, but hey, and that act was 2010, so that's not new, right? Do you know what I mean? Like things around that it should be a social model, right? And that it should aim to combat ableism. You know what I mean? Like, and and some of these things are kind of, again, outside of the comfort zones of some of the cultural organizations. And like, don't get me wrong, we have lots of amazing relationships with other organizations in this city that work really hard to, kind of move things forward as well, so we're not alone in that. But I mean, we are, I suppose, in terms of the island of Ireland, the only gallery that specifically works and shows artists who are deaf or disabled or neurodiverse. You know what I mean? And so that's our core cohort of artists, and again, we have opportunities that come up. I mean, just the other day, I was invited to see if we can find any artists who are working in Braille. Yeah. So if anybody's interested in, or is working in Braille, can you get in touch with me? Because I'm looking for you. And but yeah, it's even things around, like, just like, it's sometimes just simple things. It's like, sometimes it's a simple thing about, like, if you're having a talk, right? Some people don't want to sit butted up to each other, right? I don't like to sit bang up against somebody else, right? So you kind of mix it up. You have a range of different things, right? So that that whoever comes in can kind of go, okay, so I can be there, or I can be there, or or that there's seats that are comfortable, so like, if I'm coming in and I have arthritis or whatever, I need maybe a more comfortable seat than the metal bench that I'm familiar with in the gallery or whatever, and it's even just things like that. It's things like having a straw, and I know straws are like illegal or whatever now, but like, I mean, if I have cerebral palsy and I'm having a cup of tea, I need a straw, right? Do you know what I mean? So, in your little cupboard of goodies, put a thing of straws so that, if somebody comes in, they can have a cup of tea, and, it's simple things like that, that don't cost a lot, but they just take a little bit of thinking, they take a little bit of, just kind of looking around and going, what might somebody need, and it's like, I mean, like, we just recently got like funded to install a toilet that's a wash toilet, so, and we have a hoist and stuff like that, so if somebody needs to use the bathroom with a PA and so on, they have a wash facility and stuff like that. And that makes a difference between somebody being able to attend an opening, let's say, or an exhibition, or not, and it means that they can go and their personal care is considered, and catered for, and I know that there's a lot of different people campaigning around, getting more changing places, bathroom facilities in buildings around the city and around the province or whatever, so that's really good, like, and yeah, but I'm just thinking, like, people should join up, they should become members. This is where I'm plugging now. if you become a member and you want to have a chit chat about something, an idea or whatever, like we're in the moment, we're at this moment in time planning our Bounce Festival. We're not sure if it's going to be how it's going to manifest itself at this moment. We hope that we can do some real life things, so people can come out and see what great work's been made around the city, but we'll have to see what happens there, but if you sign up, you'll find out about any opportunities. We're hoping that there's going to be other funding opportunities coming in the pipeline as well. And again, that's all about kind of ensuring that people have the resources they need, and like even things like if you want to come to one of our events and you need to bring an advocate, a buddy, an ally, a personal assistant, whatever, they'll get a free ticket. You know what I mean? So like you can bring somebody with you if you want to attend a thing, or yeah. And just, I suppose, we want to make sure that people come and see the work, that's really important, because there's an amazing artists working around. And I mean, like, we don't just work with like local artists either, we work with international artists, and but at the moment obviously that's a bit more difficult, and we just had an amazing exhibition by Brian Keelt, who is part of this program as well. And Brian's show is still on at the moment, and if you're about town, come in and see it. We're near, if you are familiar with Belfast City, we're on Royal Avenue. We're between the White Bank and, so if you're at the old Bank of Ireland, or let's say Belfast Central Library, we're across the road from Belfast Central Library. There's a whole load of scaffolding outside the building. We're there. If anybody is having difficulty finding us, we'll come out and meet you on the street. We're a small team, and we have a loop system in the space. So if you have a hearing, like if you've got a T setting on your hearing aid, you can come in. We'll also do audio describe tours. So if anybody wants to come in who's visually impaired, they can come in and we'll do an audio describe tour. Or if somebody needs to come in and not have anybody bother them, then just say, look, I don't want to talk to anybody and we won't talk to you. We'll do whatever.
I think that highlights, it's so important, this rigidity. There's always this rigidity, and exactly as you say, if you don't fit into this very rigid form of this, then that's your problem and no one can help you here. So this idea that, and I guess what I really hope people are getting is, I know there's so many organizations that will make you feel like you can't disclose, make you feel like there are organizations out there that aren't very nice, and that's okay. That's their problem. Because there's actually so many great people out there, like yourself, Deirdre, who are and there's loads of people working in this better system that is just way more suited.
It's also about feeling that you can as well, because the thing is let's say, for example, you're in college and you want to you're studying arts admin at Queen's or something, right? And you want to do a placement somewhere, and whatever specific disability you might have. I mean, it's sometimes for me anyway, it helps sometimes if somebody says, look at thanks for giving me all of that information there, but actually, I'm really dyslexic, so this is not a task that's going to be, one that's going to move me forward, and it's even about if you're volunteering somewhere, then you need to have that conversation. It's a two-way street. It's what do I get out of it? What do you get out of it? What works for me? What works for you? How do we meet in the middle so that everybody is learning or gaining something, and I feel like I'm kind of going around a bit in circles now. And I suppose when we talked the other day, we were let's not, we're not going to necessarily hit the clock here, Stephen. But I mean, the thing is that it's more about actually just, kind of letting it find its own time.
Mm.
But I suppose like the We Shall Not Be Removed campaign, definitely line up to that. Become a member. Become a member of the University of Atypical. See what's going on. And again, we're interested in artists at all stages of their career. And yeah, we want to try and nurture the talent and the skills coming out of Belfast.
Yeah, well, you even have a fund. You were saying about even like North Derry Strabane Council and like
Yeah. So we've been approached by the Derry and Strabane Council. Oh goodness me, can I find it now? But they're doing like they've done a call out for artists recently. I put it up on our Facebook page. So if you visit the University of Atypical's Facebook page, it's on there. There's also other places like Disability Arts Online.
mm,
So Disability Arts Online always have amazing, like for example, like from I think it was the 4th to the 10th of October was like Dyslexia Awareness Week. And there was this amazing video about like sort of the angry dyslexic. And basically, again, it was talking about, this artist who had been working, like, I don't know, he's maybe this particular piece is maybe from like 10 or 15 years ago. But like he's talking about how he, as a dyslexic artist, was always kind of bending his dyslexia to accommodate the sort of kind of neuronormative world or something, and he was like, actually no, hang on a second, this is a talent, this is a skill, right? And now if you look at our Facebook page, you'll see that video. It's really good. And yeah, so Disability Arts Online are really good, and again, that's more UK wide. So like, for example, if there's funding coming up and you're like, I don't know, if you're looking at this and you're in the south or something, you may not be able to apply. But yeah, I mean, definitely check it out.
yeah,
And there's lots of good like blogs. They're always looking for bloggers and vloggers and stuff like that as well, that are looking at sort of different, kind of aspects of disability culture, and there's a really great podcast happening at the moment called Access My Way Access, sorry. And it's on a Saturday mostly, I think, or a Wednesday. Anyway, but there's a really interesting podcast there, and like they talk about all sorts of things, like
mm,
they're really into their comics, like they're into their comic cons and stuff like this. And they were kind of, like, and talking about crypties and stuff like this, about like, yeah, just about kind of the sort of when you go to comic cons and like people crip up and stuff like that, and the kind of politics around that, and the kind of, maybe the sort of problems with that, or, just talking about it, exploring it as an idea or a way of doing things, and whether it's, politically sound or not to do that, but yeah, I mean, there's lots of different stuff happening. And, there's also, again, if you go to Belfast City Council and stuff like that, looking for funding, again, like if there's particular things that you need to include in your project, then make sure to include them, because, if you have specific requirements to do your project, then make sure you include them when you're funding or doing your applications and all that.
we have 2 questions from Rosie.
Yeah.
You mentioned neurodiverse. Could you explain that, please? Because I've never really heard of it. So we'll start with that. So neurodiverse.
Well, I mean, like, I suppose it's how different brains operate, really. I mean, essentially, I mean, for example, if I'm on the autistic spectrum, I would be considered to, I suppose, occupy neurodiverse space. And yeah, I mean, a lot of different ways of kind of I suppose, different brain ways. That's not really making very much sense, but yeah. So like, basically, I suppose, yeah, just the way different brains operate, and and what, like, for example, I don't know if, let's say, for like Asperger's and stuff like that, or so I don't know if that answers that. I
I
can
think
probably
yeah,
I,
it's like
I can probably give you a more Wikipedia answer if you want. But yeah, I mean, just I suppose different brains, different brain ways, you know, can come and be part of all of this.
very cool. And then second question is, if I or anyone else have any other question, what's your preferred way of contact?
So, well, I suppose again, it depends on if the person is better on the phone or typing, whatever, like, because sometimes you can type for 3 hours and then it may be a case of picking up the phone and going, hey, can we just have a quick chat? And you get much more done. So if you want to pick up the phone, you can pick up the phone. The gallery number is, and I should know this off the top of my head, but I don't because I'm scatty. Bear with me for a moment. So the gallery number is, but you can email me alternatively. My email address is administration@universityofatypical.org, which is a nice short little email address. And if you want to pick up the phone, then pick up the phone. Or, like, if you want to pop in, we have obviously, kind of certain sort of measures in place because of COVID, but we have enough space to socially distance. So if you wanted to pop in, you could. So the phone number is 028 90 23 9450. That's 02890 23 9450. And if you want to pick up the phone, then we can have a chat. You can come pop in. I mean, obviously, if you want to pop in, then it's better to maybe let's arrange it, because sometimes it's like, like if we're busy or we have an application to be away or we've got, a meeting on or something like that, it's better to arrange it so that there's some dedicated time and space and thinking to whatever it is that the person might want to talk about, but yeah, we want to know what artists are doing. We're keen to get people coming in and letting us know what they're doing, and especially younger artists, because like as an older artist, I'm like, I know all of the like heads from around Belfast for years and years and years. Do you know what I mean? Like, but like it's kind of interesting. Like sometimes if I go to, let's say, an opening in Catalyst or something like that, and I'm like going, who are all these people? I don't know any of these people. This is interesting. All these like, cool hip kids, and we want to make sure that everyone, like we want to know who you are. We want to know what you're doing, and come in.
I think that openness will be very exciting. I find it really exciting.
There's also a thing called Little Cog, right? There's I'm just going to throw out some things like that might be good points of reference as well for anybody who might want to sort of explore further. Like there's a thing called Little Cog. There's a thing called Dash Arts. There's the Disability Arts Online. Loads more, I know. The We Shall Not Be Removed, I've already said that loads of times. Our website. Anyway.
Amazing. I just want to thank Deirdre so much, because it gives me a lot of hope personally to hear just how much space I can take up. And I think that's a good way to think about it, is you deserve to take up space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You deserve to take up space in no matter what form that is. I mean, you need extra money for a PA if you need extra time. You need extra lending privileges or money to print things in a different format.
Yeah. I mean, like,
right. Yeah.
And the thing is, and you get to ask that of any of the galleries. You get to sort of, if they're giving you a contract, let's say, for your exhibition or whatever, then you need to say, whatever it is that you need. I mean, like, the thing is that unless, and the thing is that if they don't ask, then you probably won't tell them because they haven't asked either. They don't maybe, and maybe asking means that they have to do something differently. So, just go ahead and ask and say, look at, do you, can you supply this for my particular access requirement, or, what, and again, that's really varied. Like, it depends on the nature of somebody's disability as to which way, they need to have, things done, and sometimes those things are, again, as simple as having a straw. Do you know?
Yeah. And I think I think your MO of the self-identifying, I think it was something you said a couple of weeks ago. Nobody knows what you need more than you, like, as in, and that is totally fair. You don't need a doctor to say,
yeah,
oh, Sohan needs time off. You need time off.
Yeah.
That's, you deserve your personal experience is just as important as.
Yeah. And it's also about being able to feel in the room to communicate that. Do you know what I mean? Like, because, like, the thing is that I know, for me anyway, just like, there's been times where I've, like, been up a ladder, trying to install a projector or something for my show, when actually that was a great source of pain for me and probably dangerous. But, I just didn't, like, I didn't want to be, like, different. I didn't want to, like, shake anybody's stuff up or whatever, and, it was kind of like, I didn't ask. But now I know I can ask. I can say, do you have a technician? Quite simply, do you have a technician who will help me with this? Do you know what I mean? Or, like, and it's a communication, it's a conversation, like, and it's okay to have that with the galleries. It's okay to have that with the curators. Do you know what I mean? And also, if you're planning a project, doing a DIY project, maybe you need to think about how you do it too. Do you know what I mean? Like, you need to think about who's welcome in this. If I'm doing a talk and it's up 5 flights of stairs without a lift, then I'm not going to be there. My buddy in the wheelchair is not going to be there. You know what I mean? So, like, like, again, it's that sort of, like, being part of the solution or part of the problem. And I know that sounds really cheesy, like, but it's a real thing. It's very, very real. There'll be people that won't be there because they can't be there, because you've made it impossible for them to be there, even though they want to, and they've got loads to say and they're interesting, and anyway.
Thank you so much, Deirdre. Oh, you're just so inspiring. Thank you. And there's just so much love.
Yay! Big love right back.
So good, just everyone.
Big love right back. And I'm really excited, because I'm excited to see all these amazing artists that are going to come forward and go, well, hi, I'm da-da-da-da-da, and I'm interesting.
It'll be so good. We'll post more info. I know, hopefully Deirdre will join our Slack, and I know.
Oh, yes, I forgot to do that.
No, don't worry. But I will also post more, any opportunities as well, because it's nice to have a community, even with, like, that we can support each other and just get anything coming up.
Well, Strabane, Derry City and Strabane District Council, there's a call out there right now for artists to get involved. So if you're interested, get involved. And remember, you know what? Sometimes you make sure to ask what the fee is, right? Because artists should be paid for their work, right? So don't forget a fee, and sometimes it depends. If you're doing a DIY project, sometimes there is zero budget. And I know that Stephen said he needed us to go at 12 o'clock. So, but, ask what the fee is,
Yeah.
Get paid for your work.
Respect yourself. You're great, guys.
Yeah. I hope I haven't rambled on too much. And again, if people want to call, then do. And I would happily talk to anybody about whatever it is they're sort of thinking.
Amazing. Thank you. Thanks so much, Deirdre.